if I recognize the opportunity for revenge, I would not take it.
Okay, so look, my skin has been breaking out like crazy for the last like month. And
probably because all of that you have on your face. And oh my goodness, who told you to put that on your eyelids? Why are you doing that? What happens if you go blind?
Can't figure out why. That's first, why. I thought I was allergic to this cat. And then I was like, is it the skincare stuff that I'm using?
Probably.
Is it the change in the weather? I don't know.
Sure, why?
I still don't know. But what I do know is that my skin barrier has been destroyed. So to fix that, I saw on TikTok that the girlies are using Diaper Rash cream for their face because of the zinc that it has in it.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe
I'm gonna try that. Because nothing's working. Nothing else is working, but everyone has good results with this.
I'm gonna need a dermatologist to chime in on this because I mean, I just don't know if it's safe enough for a baby's bottom. Okay, I might trust it, but something from TikTok, no, because the last time I tried something from TikTok, I have been recovering from acne since then. Don't ever put castor oil on your face because it clogs your pores. Okay, then you end up looking like me. I'm still recovering, so yeah. Dermatologist, please chime in and let me know if this is true or not.
Everyone. So check back in the morning.
Oh no! Oh!
So Lily Phillips is doing one up on Bonnie Blue by letting 1,000 men through the back door, apparently. Yes, you heard me right. 1,000 men dropping anchor in Pooh Bay. At what point do one's management team intervene and say, actually, we're not going to let you do that because you might just unalive yourself, sweetheart. So basically, right, the front can take it. The front can take 1,000. Like, realistically, you know, it can have babies. It can take it. Might be a bit beat up at the end, but it can take it. The back, however, is exit only. And no, it can't take it.
Exit only.
You have to think about the fact that some of them men, right, might be large, on the larger side. Even if they're not, 1,000 in the wrong gun. No thank you. There's internal bleeding, all sorts. At some point, her family have got to say, stop. I don't care how much money you're getting, babe. I don't care if you want to get in the slag book of world records. There's got to be some health and safety. But hey, maybe she'll get a brand deal off Pampers at the end of it so she can promote them. Because she's gonna fucking need it. And she's gonna need plenty after she's added up the chocolate starfish. Do you know what I mean?
So usually I don't do story times this late, and where I am right now, it's like 1 a.m. But I just remembered, well, I can't sleep, so I'm just gonna give y'all this very quick story time. I remember the story that one of my friends told me back when I was in Haiti. So I would tell you to get your snack, but I know it's late, so I don't even want you getting your back that big. Anyways, so my friend told me the story back when I was in Haiti, and it goes like this. So one night she was sleeping, right? And she randomly woke up at like 2 a.m. And I remember my grandma always telling me, whenever you wake up in the middle of the night, it's for a reason. Like, God is waking you up for a reason. Either he wants you to pray or he wants you to get up and pay attention to something, right? And her mom had also taught her the same thing. So she woke up in the middle of the night and she didn't know why, but she just woke up. She was just sitting there like, I wonder what the reason is tonight. Like, because I was sleeping just fine, but now I'm up. And so she's just sitting in her room trying to like wait it out to see what's going to happen, right? And first she prayed about it for a few, and then she just decided to stay up. And if nothing happened, by the time it hit like 3 or 3:30, she was going to go back to sleep. And at the time, she was living with her father and her stepmom. So as she's sitting there, you know, just scrolling on her phone, whatever, she hears somebody come through her door. And at the time she was very young, so she wasn't allowed to be on her phone this late. So she quickly like pretended like she was sleeping. So she like threw her phone under her pillow and pretending she was sleeping. And as she's laying there pretending that she's sleeping, she peeks through a little bit and she sees that it's her godmom. Not her godmom, her stepmom, sorry. So she's like, kind of odd, but not too weird, right? It was until she realizes that her stepmother had sage in her hand, and she started to sage her room. And at the time she was young and she didn't really know what sage was. And y'all love to eat me up when I tell y'all about sage, but nobody want to believe me. Sage is not meant for protection, baby. Sage attracts exactly what you're trying to protect yourself from. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Anyway, she sees her stepmom trying to sage her room. And as she's saging her room, she's saying some kind of prayer. And she still had to pretend to sleep, so she didn't really see much. So she tried to like, move herself to pretend like she's just switching positions. And she realizes that her stepmom has a sage and a red candle lit. So when she was done, she just like left out, right? And the next day, she mentioned this to her dad. And her dad looked very concerned. And come to find out, y'all, the stepmom was doing this to the daughter because she was jealous of how much attention that she was getting from her dad. Thank God, like, the dad broke up with her instantly. Like, the moment he found out what she was doing, he broke up with her. Kicked her out the house and everything. And come to find out, this wasn't her first time. She has been trying to do voodoo on the stepdaughter because she just hates, like, the relationship that she has with her dad. But I was just sitting here thinking about this story, and I was thinking about how a lot of people seem to think that sage is for protection when it's really not. And every time I speak about it, people are ready to jump in my neck and jump in my throat. But it's like, damn, yeah, sage is not to be used for protection, y'all. I don't know.
All right, I need a conversation about this because I thought it was for protection, but this is like the first time I'm hearing this, so I need some comments here. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below.
It's like middle of the night, clearly it's dark kind of thought for me, and I just thought about that story and I thought I'd give it to y'all. So if you're out here using sage, I suggest you stop. But no, the moment that you do stop, the spiritual warfare that's going to come with that is not going to be easy. You're going to be getting attacked because you stopped using it. Your life is going to take drastic changes, but you must stop using it. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, she don't know what she's talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I always know what I'm talking about.
Interesting. I kind of believe her, though.
Good night.
Miami, Florida. You are about to see a horrendous act of domestic violence.
On January 18, 1993, a 34-year-old man named Emilio Nunez walked into a cemetery in North Lauderdale, Florida. And it wasn't just any cemetery. It was the final resting place of his 15-year-old daughter, Yoandra. She had taken her own life just 2 months earlier, and Emilio was devastated. But Emilio wasn't alone that day. He had invited a crew from Ocurrió Así, a Telemundo TV program, to film him at the gravesite. Why? Because Emilio wanted to tell the world about the unbearable loss of his daughter and who he believed was responsible for her death. As Emilio stood by his daughter's grave speaking to the reporter, another car pulled into the cemetery. The cameraman turned his lens toward the vehicle, and then Emilio froze. Inside the car was someone he didn't expect to see: his ex-wife, 33-year-old Maritza Martin. Maritza was a former actress from Mexico and Yoandra's mother. Maritza had come to visit her daughter's grave, but as soon as she parked, the reporter swarmed her car. They banged on her window, yelling questions, but she stayed silent. And as this was happening, Emilio turned and walked back to his car. Maritza finally stepped out of her vehicle, quietly making her way toward Yoandra's grave. She ignored the reporters who were still shouting questions at her. Emilio, from his car, watched her intently. What happened next was so sudden, so horrifying, that it shocked millions of people watching this on live TV. As Maritza walked towards the grave, Emilio grabbed a 9mm pistol from his car, stormed up behind her, and pulled the trigger. He shot her in the back of the head. Maritza fell to the ground, but Emilio wasn't done. He stood over her body and fired several more rounds into her lifeless form. But why? Why would Emilio kill the mother of his daughter and do it in such a public, brutal way? Guys, to understand Emilio's motive, you have to go back to the weeks leading up to Yoandra's death. In late 1992, Yoandra revealed a devastating secret. She was 13 weeks pregnant. Emilio believed that the baby's father was none other than Yoandra's stepfather, Maritza's husband. When Yoandra confesses to her mother, Maritza didn't protect her. Instead, she slapped her and sided with the stepfather. Emilio claimed Maritza emotionally abused her daughter, humiliated her, and ultimately drove her to take her own life. To Emilio, this wasn't just a tragic loss, it was murder. And when Maritza walked toward Yolanda's grave that day, Emilio saw his chance for revenge. After the shooting, Emilio fled the scene but was arrested shortly after. In 2000, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Maritza ended up getting buried next to her daughter. If you guys want to hear more Mexican true crime stories like this, then like and follow, brah.
Now you might think this is just another normal, creepy cemetery
That was a crazy story, but still, even with that, I would not take revenge because every dog gets their day.
photograph. But what if I told you there's something in this image that makes it so much more sinister? Now if you take a closer look, you can make out a dark figure lingering there in the background. It almost appears as though a man wearing a 17th century plague doctor mask, a
Wait a minute, now
leather-like
how the heck
mask
does
with
he
a
see
long
that?
bird-like beak.
How does he see that? Because I don't see a thing right now, okay? I just see something a little bit shiny, and I don't see that.
Used during the plague to protect doctors from bad air. But why would someone be wearing this in a cemetery at night? Is this just a man in a costume, or did the photographer capture something much more menacing on camera? What do you think? Is this just an eerie photo, or is this a remnant from the 1600s? You be the
I think
judge.
you're wasting my time. That's a little bit creepy. What? Somebody didn't do that? Why would he do that? Huh. They don't want you going in there, buddy. Just stay out of there. How is that random when you just you just did it? It's an old house. It's gonna move. It's gonna make noise.
Have you ever been scratched by a demon? Even if you're high. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and not so recently I opened an email where anyone who finds this page would be able to send me their ghost stories. I chose this one in particular because it involves something that I've never heard of before, which is a game called Cat Scratch. So let's get into it. This story comes from someone who would like to remain anonymous, and for obvious reasons I'm going to respect that. And for context purposes, this took place at a sleepover when she was like 13. And everything was going normal. They were having snacks, they were watching movies, and then they got bored around 2 a.m. And it is at this point where the girl who sent me this email says that she wanted to play this game called Cat Scratch. And the girl who sent me this says that she's actually played this game before prior to this incident and nothing happened the first time. So the way this girl describes the game to me is you have to play with two people, the narrator and the player. The narrator is sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor, and the player lays their head down in the narrator's lap. And the narrator goes on to tell the story about a cat, I'll get into what they say, while rubbing the temples of the player. The player's job is to visualize the story that the narrator is telling. I also want to make note before I get a comment about you're not supposed to tell the story. The story is fine unless you're playing the game. And I did write the story down so I could just tell you guys in one take instead of having to clip the video for every sentence I remember. But the story goes like this. There once was an old lady who owned a cat. The cat was very nice. It meowed and purred. One day, the cat got hit by a car and... Cat scratch, cat scratch, cat scratch. The old lady got a new cat. The cat was very mean. It hissed and clawed. Cat scratch, cat scratch, cat scratch. One day, the cat got hit by a car and... the lady decided not to get any more cats. Cat scratch, cat scratch, cat scratch. And I guess there's a second version of the story, but the girl couldn't find it. But I'm assuming it's close to the same story. Anyways, after you are done telling the story, the person who's laying in your lap as the narrator gets up and you're supposed to grab their shirt and like pull them back. And they're immediately supposed to stand up and you're supposed to look at their back. And as this girl is describing this game to her friends, did you hear that? I just went back and listened to the audio to see if I caught it finally. And if you turn the volume all the way up, you can very faintly hear on the video. Anyways, back to the story, sorry. As this girl is describing this game to her friends were like, oh yeah, we've played that before and nothing happened. So they look it up on the internet to like see if it's real. And all the sources are saying, you know, yes, it's real, but it's really just a harmless game to play with your friends. So they decided to play the game. And this is where things get a little scary in my opinion. They decide to play cat scratch in the attic of this girl's house. And it is very important to note that none of them really believed in the paranormal at the time. The first time that they played this game, nothing happened. The girl who sent me this email was acting as the narrator because she knew the game the best. And she personally thinks that the game didn't work the first time because it has to be a completely silent room and her friends were like giggling and thinking it was fake. They played it a second time, nothing happened, and the girl who sent me this says that she thinks that the reason why it didn't work is because the game was interrupted again. Her phone screen darkened with the story on it and she had to click it, which meant she had to remove her fingers from the temples of the person laying in her lap. I also forgot to mention that the reason why they were doing this in the attic was so that they were able to record this whole experience. On the third try, her friend sits up, the game went uninterrupted, and there are 3 white horizontal lines on her back. And this really freaked them out, so they took a 5-minute breather. So when they come back from their break, the girl who sent me this email was like, hey, I want to be the player instead of the narrator because I want to experience this too.
Huh.
And she says that she specifically moved to another part of the room and they did the cat scratch ritual in another part of the room because she was like, maybe there was something on the floor that was like scratching her back. We don't know. But it is important to note that she did not think this was real. The girl who sent me this says that she was really trying to imagine the story and it felt like she was there. And when she sat up, there was a scratch across her back and all of her friends started freaking out and she started freaking out and demanded them to take a photo of it and show her. And that is when they just left it alone.
Let me see the picture.
But whatever was doing that to them was not done. And even when they showed their parents and their friends the footage of them getting scratched and playing this game, nobody believed them. And it wasn't until 5 months later where things really started getting weird. So the girl who sent me this email and her sister were standing in the kitchen, and the way that their kitchen is positioned in their home is the windows face out towards the backyard. And in their backyard, they have this garden when all of a sudden, the girl who sent me this says she saw a man walk across the garden and disappear behind the shed. She tells her sister about it, and her sister is freaking out, grabs a kitchen knife, and goes to check the garden out. Middle of the day.
Brave.
She comes back, and there was no one there. This is the part that really scares me. 3 weeks after the garden incident, this girl is laying on her stomach in her bedroom on her phone watching TikTok when all of a sudden these hands start to come around her face like they are going to cover her eyes. And the way that she's describing these hands, it reminds me of charred skin with these long, disgusting nails. And she obviously freaks out. And when she moves, the hands get scared and they pull back and she turns her lamp on. And when she turns around, she sees this man standing in the corner of her room. And she is staring at this thing for what feels like a minute before turning her lamp on. And the moment the lamp comes on, he's gone. And she proceeds to tell me that she continues to see this man in dark corners or just like little dark places when she's riding her bike home from school, when she's going to the bathroom, when she's anywhere. That is not where this stops though. This girl stays at the friend's house again on Halloween of this year, and they decide to play cat scratch again.
What?
And like I was saying earlier, there was a second version that she couldn't find, but it was much scarier. And they both played it twice as the narrator and the player, and were successful both times. Both of them had 3 horizontal scratches on their backs, And the girl who sent me this says that that is when she realized that this was not just a...
Excuse me, wait a minute. So I'm going to play this game again because I didn't get enough of seeing this man in my bedroom.
harmless game, and that whatever this game has in it was very powerful. And about a month later, she sleeps over again, but this is in the middle of the day where she's laying on her stomach again, watching TikTok, and out of the corner of her eye, she sees a figure walk in front of the doorway. And her friend was like down in the kitchen getting them snacks or something. And since it had been a pretty long time since anything weird happened, she decided to tell her friend's mom. So she tells her friend's mom, and her mom is like, oh, that's just grandpa. And the mom then goes into detail about how when the grandfather died, they left a lot of money for them to buy the house that they were in. And ever since they bought the house, they have been seeing him a lot. That didn't explain the entity that was in her room with the hat. And she says that she's seen him so often that he doesn't even scare her anymore. And from a personal perspective, I have no idea how people get used to hauntings because
right.
I've seen some stuff, and every time I do or I experience something, it freaks me out every time without fail, even if it is days in a row. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
The man in this photo is one of the worst sexual offenders in the history of Ohio. This man's name was Brian Peppers. For years, this photograph circulated on the internet attached to his story of sexual abuse, and nobody believed that it was real. But some fact-checking was eventually done, and yes, Brian Peppers was a real man with a real peppered past. So, Brian was born with something called Cruzon syndrome. And when Brian was younger, he was bullied incessantly by people in his school. So, as Brian grew older over the years, his body quickly began to grow weaker, and eventually his mental health deteriorated to such a point that he had to be checked into a nursing home. But it was in the year 1998 when Brian was arrested and convicted of molesting somebody. According to the report, he actually sexually abused the nurse that was taking care of him in the nursing home. Brian was then removed from the nursing home. He spent 30 days in jail, and he was on probation for 5 years. After this incident, Brian was on the sex offenders registry in Ohio up until his death. When he died, Brian Peppers was only 4 foot 1 inches.
Stop it. Did you see that van? That van said, what was it? Good time van, no adults.
Tall. And he passed away on February 7th, 2012. Which, eerily enough, is the day that I'm posting this TikTok, and I didn't even realize it until I read that just now.
A terrifying real footage of a group of men following a girl home.
Can't fucking open the damn door.
Hurry up. Get out of here. Anyways, if you like this video, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.